In this video, I want to talk about Kotlin Coroutines and demonstrate their power in a simple Android app. Coroutines are the best way to handle asynchronous programming. So let me first talk about what that means, and then we'll go through the example. Android apps run as a single process on your phone's operating system. A process can contain many threads, but there's one special thread called the main thread and a bunch of background threads. By default, your application code will run on the main thread, also called the UI thread, because that's where the Android system will keep redrawing the UI for your application 60 times per second. So it's really important that any of the code you write doesn't interfere with the Android system's ability to draw your app at this target refresh rate of 60 times per second. That's why network calls to an API, reading or writing from a database, or doing any other expensive computation happens on a background thread. And this is the idea of asynchronous programming. All these expensive operations, we don't want them to happen synchronously on the main thread because that would prevent us from reaching 60 frames per second. And instead, we want to punt that work off to a background thread. The complexity comes from the fact that anything which updates the UI must run on the UI thread. So a very common pattern is that you open up the app, you make a network request, and that has to happen on a background thread. But then, once the network request succeeds, you want to then update the UI with the information. So there has to be some mechanism to communicate from the background thread back to the main thread. What we'd like to be able to do is something like this, where we make a method which does the API request, and then we simply capture the return value in some variable. Unfortunately, if you've been doing Android for any amount of time, you'll know that this doesn't work because this would block the main thread. So the standard pattern on Android to do work like this is something called callbacks. And the idea of a callback is you pass a function as a parameter, and that function will get invoked automatically. So for example, you do something like this, where you call to API request, and instead of capturing the return value, you would instead pass in a listener. And that listener has a method called onSuccess, and then the onSuccess will run on the main thread when the expensive operation has completed. And this is exactly what Kotlin Coroutines are trying to fix. This programming model of passing a callback is really confusing, and it's also error prone, which I'll show you in a little bit. Kotlin Coroutines will allow us to write code similar to what I have crossed out here and go back to a much simpler paradigm for doing asynchronous work. Let me show you in Android Studio. What I have here is a really simple Android app, which is utilizing the callback style method of handling asynchronous programming. So all this app does is if you tap on this button, do API requests, then the app will fire off 3 different API requests, and it will then update the text view to show a user and how many blog posts they've made. And the API that we're using is something called jsonplaceholder.typecode.com, and this is a really nice and simple service which just allows us to work with a fake blog RESTful API. There are 2 entities that we care about in the API. One is the post, which is the blog post, and the second is the user. So the blog post has an ID and an author, which is the user ID, and then the user has an ID and a name. So let me show you the API that we'll be talking to. So there are 3 relevant methods, one which is get post, get user, and then get post by user. And you can see the result of that is actually a list of blog posts. So what we're doing in the app so far is the classic way of doing API requests. So we create retrofit, and then you'll notice that we're doing a callback style, right? So we're going to call the API method get post, and instead of getting a return value here, we're enqueuing a callback. And then you have on failure and on response. And the interesting thing that we're doing here, which is also a really common pattern, is that we're using the result of one API request to make the next API request. So in the on success for getting the post, here we are getting the author of that post, and we're going to make another API request for that user. And there's actually a third API request we're making based on the second one, which is getting all the posts by that user. And then finally, we're able to update the text view back on the main thread with the author along with how many posts they've made. So there are a couple issues, right? One is that there's a term for this called callback hell. You can see there's a bunch of indentation and curly braces, and it makes it hard to read this code. And second, the issue is that there's a ton of error handling that we're repeating over and over again, not only in the on failure method, but also in on response. And so this is about 60 lines of code so far. Let's see how we can reduce it using Kotlin Coroutines. The first thing we'll do in order to enable that is go into the app level build.gradle file, and there are 2 libraries that you need to include to use Kotlin Coroutines, one which is the core and one which is the Android specific components. So we'll tap on sync now, and now let's go back into blog service. The blog service interface that we wrote is used by Retrofit to allow us to make API calls. And Retrofit already has built-in support for coroutines. So our transition from the callback style to the coroutine style is actually really simple. The only thing we need to do is, number one, we should remove the call return type from all three of these methods and return the actual object which we intend to work with. And the second thing is we want to add in the suspend keyword in front of each of the three methods that we've defined. Suspend is an indication that this function has to be called from a coroutine. My mental model for a coroutine is that it's a lightweight thread. You can have multiple coroutines exist in one thread, but that coroutine represents a job that that thread is doing. And this job can consist of various tasks. And this is where the suspend keyword comes in. Coroutines are allowed to call suspending functions in the sense that this task that we create might be expensive and it might halt execution on this coroutine, might suspend that coroutine, but that doesn't actually block the thread. And that's a really important property of coroutines. And the consequence of this is that now we're allowed to chain these tasks together in a sequential way. And instead of now having to deal with callbacks, we can, within a coroutine, have this really nice property of sequential code. And that's going to really simplify our logic in our app. So now the question becomes, how do we go from the world of normal functions into the world of suspending functions inside of a coroutine? Basically, how do you create a coroutine? And for that, we'll use the launch keyword. We'll provide a coroutine scope and we'll call launch on it, and then we'll be inside of a coroutine. So let me show you how that works. So back in Android Studio, if we go into main activity, the first thing you'll notice is that you have a bunch of red errors. And the reason is, like we talked about, we added suspend into each of the functions in blog service. Now, Android Studio is telling us suspend function should only be called from a coroutine. And so let's create a coroutine inside of do API requests. The way this works is we'll say coroutine scope, and we'll pass in where is the context of where we want to launch this coroutine. And there's a few built-in contexts that we'll use. And the one I'm going to use in this case is going to be dispatchers.io. So IO means input output, and this is the appropriate dispatcher or context for making an API request. And we'll come back and actually adjust this in a little bit, but for now, this is what we want. Now we'll call the launch keyword, and inside of these curly braces, we are now inside of a coroutine. The one thing I'd like to show you, because we passed in this dispatchers.io as the context, if I put a log statement here, which is indicating the current thread, we should now expect that instead of being on the main thread, we should be on a background thread. Now let's actually call the suspend version of these retrofit methods. So I'm going to say blog service.getPost, and we're going to pass in the ID, which is 1. And the magical thing here is we're actually able to retrieve the blog post directly. No more having to write a callback. Given the blog post, I can call blog service.getUser, who wrote that blog post, and I'll call this user. And finally, the third API request we want to make in succession is all of the blog posts made by this author. So I'll say get post by user and pass in the user ID. And this is going to give us back a list of posts. Posts by that user. And so now we can go ahead and get a reference to that text view and update the text to be similar to what we had before. Amazing. So now you can actually see that this is literally all we need to do. The entire callback system, those 60 lines or so, we don't need. This should be equivalent. The only thing that we should be careful about is, like we talked about, we are now executing this on a background thread, and you can't touch the UI, which is what we're doing in line 41, from a background thread. So we actually need to indicate in the coroutine that let's go back and finish execution inside of the main thread. And that's fortunately fairly easy to do. We'll just say with context, and then I'll say dispatchers.main and put this inside of the main thread. Okay, let's try it. So hopefully we should see the identical behavior. I'm also going to open up logcat, and we should check the result of this log statement. So we are able to see the text view update, same as before. That seems like it's working. And you can see that the coroutine thread is this default dispatcher, which is a background thread. So this does a really good job illustrating the power of coroutines and how much it can simplify the code. We can actually go one step further though. There's a concept called main safety in coroutines. And what that means is, as a client using a library to do all these API requests, we shouldn't be concerned about having to launch a coroutine with the right context. All of that complexity in a well-designed library should be handled within the library. Because retrofit is well-designed and it's main safe, we don't need to launch this coroutine on the IO dispatcher. We can go ahead and put it on the main dispatcher, the main thread, and the result of that is we don't need to switch context anymore at the bottom. So I can get rid of that. And this should work identically. We just saved a few lines of code though and made this even simpler. The last thing I want to show is error handling. I talked earlier about how in the callback style, we had to repeat this error handling, exception handling logic all over the place. With coroutines, it's really simple because there's a single place to do all of this. I'm going to move these 4 lines up, and then we'll just catch whatever exception there is. I'll say log.e, and we will indicate the exception in a log statement here. So let's try this. And there should be no difference in functionality. So that works. And then now you can see the coroutine thread is, we're back on the main thread because the dispatcher.main, we handed it in here. And then one more thing we can experiment with is, let's say that we messed up the base URL. And so now we should expect some exception to be thrown when we're trying to make these API requests. So we should now catch the exception properly and print it out. Let's see if that works. Great, so you can see we get this error line saying unknown host exception, which is exactly what you'd expect because we can't resolve that host. There's one more thing I'd like to do in this video, which is how do you write your own suspend functions? So what I've already done is I added one more button into our app, which is start computation. And if I tap on that, it actually is going to be doing some really expensive work, which took, you can see, almost 3 seconds to execute. And then we update the text view with how long it took. So let me show you exactly. We have a button compute and we're setting click listener on that. And here's where we're doing the expensive work. And you'll notice that it's not actually a suspend function. So we're doing this expensive work on the main thread. And the way you can tell that this is a bad thing is because we actually have a progress bar, which I have, you can't see it, it's invisible right now, but while the computation is happening, it should be visible. And then once the computation is done, then we set it back to invisible. So because we're doing this expensive work on the main thread, we're not even able to see the progress bar. So when we convert this to coroutines and we make do expensive work into a suspend function, we should hopefully be able to see that progress bar. And it's not that important, but the expensive work that we're doing is basically trying to calculate a prime number, which is 2200 bits. So this is a pretty expensive operation. We're measuring the time in milliseconds, and then we're returning a string, which we then update into the text view. The first thing we'll do, of course, is to change do expensive work into a suspend function. And going back to the concept of main safety, we can't make any assumptions about where this function do expensive work has been called, whether on a background thread or the main thread. And so our first job is we want to change the context to be on a background thread. And we're already in a coroutine, so there's no need to construct a new coroutine. We'll just say with context. And here we want to specify which context we want to operate in. And so I'm going to use default, and I'll explain what that means in a second. And then all the code that we want in the default background thread should happen here. So what we have inside the curly brace here is a lambda. And for a lambda, the last line is automatically the return value, so we don't need return. And we can capture the return value of this lambda inside of a local variable. I'll call that time taken. And then all we need to do is return time taken from this do expensive work function. And then actually we can simplify this a little bit more by inlining the variable time taken. So we are simply returning this body of work, but we are making sure that this body of work happens on a background thread. So let me spend a minute just talking about why did we use dispatchers.default here. The coroutines library provides a built-in set of dispatchers or contexts for where your coroutine should run. The one that we are familiar with already is main, which is the main or UI thread. And this is used for updating the UI or performing really light work. There are 2 other dispatchers. So I/O means input output, and that's used for disk or network access. So for example, if you're reading or writing from the database, you would use the I/O dispatcher. And the new one that we just introduced now for doing this expensive work is the default dispatcher. And this is used for CPU intensive work. For example, sorting a large list of numbers, or if you want to do diff utils and recycler view, all that is example of CPU intensive work that you don't want on the main thread, but it's also not I/O bound. So this is a good example. In our app, we're doing something which is very CPU intensive. So we want this to happen on the default dispatcher. So now the job becomes, how can we invoke this function properly? And for that, we need to call this from a coroutine. As soon as we click on the button, we're going to create a coroutine scope. And this is going to happen on the main dispatcher because we're actually updating the UI elements here. So I'll do something similar, .launch, and then all of these lines will simply go inside of here. So now the error went away. We're hopefully going to be able to see the progress bar now, and the time taken should also update appropriately. Let's try it. So if I tap on start computation, we should see a progress bar, which is great. This will take a second or two to execute, and you can see it took around 1.5 seconds to do this expensive operation. If we try it again, we can see the progress bar, and then within a few seconds, we again see the text view update. So this is just one more example of how you could use coroutines not only for input output, but also for doing any kind of expensive operation. You can punt it to a background thread, then get updated when it's succeeded in a sequential manner, and then you can update the UI appropriately. I hope this video showed you why people are so bullish on coroutines as the future of asynchronous programming in Android. They combine the simplicity of synchronous code with the power of asynchronous code. So with coroutines, when a suspend function returns, you know all the work has completed. And that's a pretty amazing property, which really simplifies and makes our code easier to reason about. So this video just scratched the surface of coroutines. So I wanted to call out a few other topics that you probably want to look into. One is structured concurrency, which is about tracking coroutines you've launched and how do you cancel them or handle exceptions. Async is another way to create a coroutine compared to launch, which is what we used. And then there's also a topic around how do you fit coroutines into your app architecture. What I showed you here is a pretty contrived example of demonstrating the power of coroutines, but if you have a traditional architecture like MVVM, how do you integrate coroutines there? So if you're interested, drop a comment, let me know, and I'll either point you to resources or I might create more videos about coroutines. I'll leave a link to the code that we wrote in the description right below the like button. If you have any questions or feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.